25 years ago, an Ontario high school student named Colin Clarke created a wind ensemble for about 15 young musicians who were determined to be professionals. 25 years later, Colin Clarke is still the soul and inspiration of what's come to be known as the Toronto Youth Wind Orchestra, and that original group of 15 musicians has grown to 1,500 who have passed through the organization. And we're delighted to welcome Colin Clarke to TVO to tell us the story of this wonderful journey. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Well, let's take us back, please. Brampton, Ontario, 1991. You're in high school. You're thinking, I want to put a group of musicians together.
Yep.
What were you thinking?
I was crazy, actually. I thought I played with the Toronto Symphony Youth Orchestra several years ago, and it was a wonderful experience. I thought, wouldn't it be great to have an experience like that for a wind ensemble? Now, in Brampton, where I grew up, we had an honor band, and a lot of my friends are part of that, but because of funding cuts, they had to remove that from the program. So, combined with my enthusiasm for the Toronto Symphony Youth Orchestra, I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was a wind ensemble with the same kind of caliber of experience available to young people? So that's where the inspiration came from, and yeah, I started working on that round.
And what were your hopes for it ultimately?
Actually, when I began the ensemble, I wanted to play percussion. I didn't want to conduct the ensemble. I wanted to play percussion. So
Is that where you started?
that's where I started. Yeah. So my hopes was to get, to pick a particular piece and pick my part, and then play that solo in that part. And I worked with a gentleman named Bramwell Smith II, who's a very popular trumpet player, world-renowned trumpet player. Played with the United States Army Air Force Band, the Herald Trumpets. And this is the ensemble, the performance for the President of the United States. So this is a gentleman who was world-renowned. He was teaching at York University at the time, and I asked him to be the conductor of the original group. And delighted, he said, I'd be happy to do that. And I knew him because he was the conductor of the honor band that I was in when I was in grade 10.
But did you want this group to be ultimately, professional orchestra?
I just enjoyed a place to play and having some fun with friends of mine who also enjoyed having a place to play. So that's where it came from, really.
How did you grow it over the years?
I have a lot of help from a few friends. And with my enthusiasm and with the unbridled enthusiasm of people who I've worked with and met over the years, they've come together and they enjoyed the idea of having an ensemble like that to have fun with, to make music in, and to continue doing what they're doing above and beyond what they're doing in their high schools or the regular programs. So,
but I don't think you go from 15 to 1,500 without some kind of huge master plan. Was there one?
There was never a master plan. There was actually a 3-year plan. My friend Karen could tell you all this story. I put together a 3-year plan. I thought, I'm going to try this for 3 years, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. And the goal at that point in time was just to play a couple of pieces that we all loved, with the hopes that one day we can go to what was then called the North York Performing Arts Center and do a concert there. And if we could do that in 3 years, that was great. We actually managed to do that in 2 years. And we thought, this is fun, let's keep going. Maybe we can do more with this. But so I've been working on a 3-year plan for the past 25 years.
How old are the people who play in your ensemble?
There are 3 groups now. There's a concert wind, which is for beginner players. So they're about grade 4, grade 5, grade 6 in school. There's an intermediate ensemble called the Symphonic Winds, and they are pretty much high school musicians. And the Senior Wind Orchestra, which is high school, post-secondary musicians.
Did you ever worry over the years that there wouldn't be enough interest from young people who would want to play classical music?
I worry every year about that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Every September, for whatever reasons, I get concerned about whether or not we're going to have musicians to join the ensemble, because we audition every September. And every September, for the past 25 Septembers, there's always a good rush of people who come in and want to play. So it's a worry of mine that I have, but overall, there has been concerns over the years, of course, with anything else, right? With the changing in financial climates and the education system being what it is, you never know what's going to happen. So we've been lucky to have a core group of musicians who've always wanted to come and have an experience that supplements their own experiences at high school or university.
Well, the stereotype is, of course, that they've all got their iPods on and they're listening to 10,000 different rap, hip-hop, rock and roll, whatever the new thing is.
Yep.
Do they listen to classical music in their private time?
You'd be surprised. When I was in high school, I was that kid who, although everyone's listening to hip-hop and reggae and Michael Jackson, I was the guy listening to classical music. And my friends love them as I do. They would mock me, relentlessly, because, of course, who listens to Beethoven? Who listens to Tchaikovsky? Why not the new, Cool J album or whatever else? So I consider myself a bit of a loner when I was in high school, because I love this music. And
how did you get into it?
My high school concert band, my high school program. It was wonderful. I went to school in Brampton, Chinguacousy Secondary School in Brampton, and we were blessed with a fantastic music program. And it was probably one of the strongest programs in the area. And we had a number of different ensembles, jazz ensemble, concert bands, choirs, and I found my love for music in that environment. So, but at the same time, you know, my best friends were into breakdancing and into, into hip hop and whatnot. So there was a bit of a duality happening for me in school. But to answer your question now, I'm surprised as to how many musicians currently were like me when I was in high school, who listen to a breadth of different musical styles and genres, who have on their iPods a list of, you know, like several university and professional concert bands or symphony orchestras and a library of repertoire that's above and beyond what the kids listen to today.
And what percentage of the students who go through your program do you think are there because they love music and they want to have a good time and they just want a place to play, versus those who actually want to make music their life, their career, their living?
We have a good balance of both. It's hard to put a statistic on that, but I can tell you that many musicians use the wind orchestra as an opportunity to platform themselves into post-secondary education. So they spend a few years with the wind orchestra to get the attention of post-secondary institutions, Western U of T or whatnot, want to go to university. And there's a stream of musicians who want to become professionals or professional educators or something in the realm of music. There's another group of musicians who are just as important to us, who know they want to become chemists or lawyers or doctors, but they still have that passion for music making. So they come to the ensemble to have an opportunity to play music, and we welcome everyone. It's wonderful.
You want to know what the kids think of you?
Do I want to know what the kids think of me?
Do you want to know what the kids think of you? I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Stand by, Colin. Come on, Sheldon, let's play this.
Colin is such a funny guy. He makes me laugh every time in the orchestra.
That's a great thing about him. He sees the potential in every student.
He made sure to push me to my limits. Colin is so warm, wonderful, friendly. He creates such a great environment for everyone.
It's always been a really positive, warm, welcoming environment, and I'm so happy that I've been a part of it for 5 years now.
Taiwo is by far the highlight of my musical week. I don't know, it's lots of fun, lots of laughs, lots of stories.
It's always like the best 3 hours of my Sunday.
It's been an amazing experience, and I can truly say that Taiwo is my home away from home.
It's so much fun, and I love Taiwo.
That is awesome.
That is awesome.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
You guys played Carnegie Hall.
We did.
How did you play Carnegie Hall? Don't tell me, you know the old joke. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
No. How did you get to Carnegie Hall?
That's a fun story. We applied to perform at Carnegie Hall several years ago, and we took a number of steps to get there. We sent in audition tapes, and I was interviewed a couple times. Then finally, this company picked us and said, "We'd like to have your ensemble feature us on stage." This is in 2005. So we mounted a campaign to get the ensemble to New York City to play at Carnegie Hall. And it was one of the most exhilarating, life-changing experiences we've ever had.
How so?
Well, first of all, Carnegie Hall, there's something just universal about Carnegie Hall. It's a place where, I mean, the Beatles were there, Tchaikovsky was there, so many luminaries have taken that stage. So when we thought about the opportunity of us to be on that stage, that was motivation in and of itself. Funny story, when we got there, we had a dress rehearsal on stage, and we were soaking in the moment. But as I dropped my baton and began to conduct, the ensemble sounded absolutely terrible. They were just atrocious. People actually began to burst into tears because they can hear themselves in this gorgeous hall, and they can hear how they're not in tune and they're not in time, and they don't know why, and they're all just kind of worked up because they're taking in the moment, and they were at Carnegie Hall. So there are some kids who left the stage, again, in tears and worried because their whole family is coming down. One girl, I'll remember, she was on her cell phone and said, "Mom, don't come. We sound horrible, don't come." So when we finally did the concert in the evening, I had a piece of paper, and the piece of paper just read, "Breathe." And they all just breathed. And then we played, and the last thing I remember was turning around and bowing to the audience. I don't remember most of the performance at all, but it was such a glorious occasion for us that when we walked off stage after the performance, the ensemble burst into a raucous version of "O Canada." They just began singing at the top of their lungs. The stage had to calm us down because we were so enthusiastic that we were disturbing the concert in the next hall next door.
This just happened spontaneously.
Just happened spontaneously. Just began to sing, and it was just an exhilarating performance for us back then. And we chose to repeat that performance again in 2011, and then one more time in 2016.
So it sounds to me you're not quite like J.K. Simmons in that movie Whiplash.
No.
You know what I'm referring to?
Maybe a little. Yes, I do.
You're not a tyrant up there with the kids?
Oh no, not at all. Well, some might say I am, but no, I'm not the Whiplash guy. That's a strange movie. But no, my philosophy. I mean, there's the Toscanini era, and Toscanini, when he conducted the NBC Orchestra, for example, he took a status of being, I am the conductor, you are the musician, you will do what I tell you, and that's the hierarchy here. And he had no qualms about yelling and being insistent and being, in some cases, rude or belittling. And I don't believe that's the best way to get the most out of people. It can work for some people, but in my experience, it's a collaboration. So my role is the conductor. It's not ego, it's my job. I'm the conductor of the ensemble, and this is how we do things. But I always invite input from the ensemble. I always ask them I ask my musicians, for example, what do you want to play? What repertoire do you want to do? And they give me list upon list of what they want to do. I pick from that list, pick my own favorites as well. We put it together. There's some moments in rehearsals where I'll say, how do you feel about that phrase? Or how do you feel about how this is going? Or how's it sound to you? And we'll collaboratively work on the music together because it's our presentation, not just mine. So I'm not a Whiplash kind of a guy.
You're not a dictator.
No.
But it's not a democracy either, right?
It's not a democracy either, no.
Is it a benevolent dictatorship?
Let's go with that, yes.
Okay. I want you to go way back for us.
Sure.
To when you were just getting associated with music in the first place. At some point, you got to make a decision, I guess, that you want to be the guy out front leading as opposed to one of the many in the orchestra playing. Do you know what went into that decision?
I do. I developed tendinitis in both my arms as a percussionist when I was studying at U of T. And I had to go to the doctors, and my doctor said, it was a funny story. I was late for a rehearsal at the school, and I had this appointment, and my doctor's at his desk, and he's kind of just writing away after having examined me. So I said, sir, can I get going now? And he said, do you plan to have a family one day? Thought it was a strange question. I'm looking at my clock the entire time. Sure, I hope to have a family one day. He said, do you hope to have children one day? And I said again, I'm like 19, I'm sure one day down the road, maybe I may have children. He took off his glasses, put down his pen and said, if you want to have children, if you want to be able to hold your children, put down the drumsticks. Ooh. Because your arms are in such bad shape that, after years of practice, it'll get worse and worse. And tendonitis is not the kind of thing you can cure. You can control it, you can manage it, but it's not the kind of thing that ever goes away. So I was devastated and tried to find out what I was going to do with myself by just, looking at other options. And then the idea of just, starting an ensemble, and although I originally wanted to play in the ensemble, I thought maybe I can conduct the ensemble. So I put down 2 sticks. I had 2 sticks and put down one of them and kept the other one and conducted with that. And that was kind of the short version of my burst onto the podium. Yeah.
Isn't it fascinating how the roads we take are often 180 degrees from where we want to be, but it actually works out anyway.
My original plan was to be a professional percussionist. That was my goal in life, to one day play with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra or some sort of professional orchestra. And that was ever since grade 10, that was sort of my roadmap. But to say to me in grade 10, one day you will conduct a full symphonic ensemble on stage at Carnegie Hall, I would have laughed at you at that time.
And did you end up having any kids?
No, not yet.
You're still waiting for that one?
Still working on that one.
Okay. I want to ask you... I want to ask you some odd questions here, just because Gemma New was in that chair earlier in the program. And Gemma, of course, a 29-year-old female music director and conductor with the Hamilton Philharmonic Orchestra, with whom you have some association,
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
You conduct the youth orchestra
That is correct.
Gemma doesn't look like the typical conductor at the front of the orchestra, right? She is a young woman. You don't look like the typical music director and conductor at the front of an orchestra. You are a black man. Do you two ever talk about that? Because I know you know each other and you're friends.
That's
Is
correct.
that a subject of conversation ever for you two?
It hasn't come up yet, but I do know, I can say with a certain degree of authority, the conducting world is a very male-dominated and, if I may say so, white-dominated.
Totally. That's why I asked the question.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can supplement that with a story. My first performance with the Wind Orchestra several years ago, the very first performance, we told all the musicians in the ensemble to go out and get friends and tell them to come to the concert, invite mom and dad to come out. So one particular flute player does exactly that. She brings her friends, her parents to the concert, and you can imagine it's the first concert. There's a hush in the crowd, the lights come down, and this 21-year-old walks across the stage and conducts this large symphonic ensemble. Because of my name, the parents hadn't realized I was black. Colin Clarke's a very British-sounding name, I suppose. So when they saw me, they were immediately offended. They left offended, yes. They left at the intermission, and then at the end of the concert, when their daughter came off the stage, they said, "You're not allowed to play in that ensemble ever again." And that was the last I saw of this woman. I maintained contact with her over the years, and we're friends on Facebook. But that was my first association with, my first experience with that kind of negative association with a black man conducting a large symphonic ensemble. And history will show there are not a lot of people of color or people, or women, who are the chiefs of major symphony orchestras. Now, the good news is that that landscape is changing, which is wonderful. And when I was met with this problem back in the early 90s, I decided my goal was to get out there more. If people have an association that the conductor is a white, gray-haired, tyrant dictator sort of thing,
yes.
Exactly, then it's my job to get out there even more. It's Gemma's job to get out there even more and change the climate of what we associate to be conductors. So that's what I did, and I don't apologize for being who I am. In fact, I think I bring a lot to a orchestral or symphonic setting. Gemma does the same thing, and it's a unique way of making music, and it's exciting things for us as well.
I'm trying to get inside the head of somebody who, never mind would have, a bit of a startled reaction at seeing you for the reasons you described,
Right.
but who would be offended at the notion of a black man leading an orchestra. Why would that be offensive to somebody?
There's a great book called The Maestro Myth. And in the book, Norman Liebert talks about the illusion of power and how conductors, in a good way and a bad way, sometimes back and forth, have a certain degree of power. So on a very cursory level, one might associate someone on the podium having a certain degree of authority and power over others. And if someone is against a certain culture, a certain sex, they would see that as a bit of a contrast, and something they would be, I don't want to use the word offended, but in this case they were quite taken aback by the fact that this black man was conducting their daughter in an ensemble where he wielded power, for lack of a better phrase. So I think that's where that comes from. I believe that conductors hold a certain degree of authority and responsibility with that authority. And some people might not take too well to having someone of a certain race or a certain color or a certain gender in that kind of a position.
So how do we get to a place where the sight of a black man with a baton in his hand conducting a 40-piece orchestra, 50-piece orchestra is not news anymore?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is happening with interviews like this, with moments like this, with Gemma coming on your show, with people seeing the new generation of conductors. And nothing against the old days, the golden days of symphonic conductors, but to paraphrase Trudeau, it's 2016. And there are many people of different race, ethnicity, and gender who are in great demand as musicians, orchestral conductors, and it's wonderful to see. So I think the more we see this platform out there, the more we see what's on the landscape musically, I think the more the image will change in terms of what we expect from our conductors.
Colin, you've been out there 25 years, and I got a feeling you've only just begun.
Just begun.
Thanks so much for coming into TVO tonight. This has been great.
Thanks for having me.
Colin Clarke, conductor, Wind Orchestra, Toronto Youth Wind Orchestra. Taiwo. Thanks, Colin.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.